Imagine this. It's the 23rd of the month. Payday felt solid just 2 weeks ago. Rent cleared, groceries seemed manageable, a few takeout orders didn't feel like a big deal, a couple of subscriptions renewed in the background, a sale popped up online, and you told yourself it was cheaper now than later. Then the car makes a strange noise. The pharmacy bill hits. Your utility payment lands a day early. You check your account, and suddenly that number you thought was safe looks thin, fragile, almost fake. And the worst part is not the bill. It's the realization that you don't actually know where the money went. That feeling is more dangerous than being broke for 1 month. Because when money disappears without a clear story, you stop trusting yourself. You don't just lose cash, you lose control. And once that happens, every new expense feels like an ambush. Every normal bill feels like a crisis. Every purchase becomes a tiny argument in your head. Now, here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people are not financially unprepared because they're lazy. They're unprepared because modern spending is designed to feel painless until the pain is massive. Tap to pay, one-click checkout, buy now, pay later, auto-renew, background charges. The system removes friction at the moment you spend, then brings back full emotional force at the moment you review your balance. By then, the damage is already done. But here's the real problem. Most budgeting advice starts too late. It starts after the money has leaked out. It tells you to track your spending, like that alone will save you. It gives you categories so broad they hide the behavior that's killing your progress. Or it gives you apps so automated that you stop thinking altogether. And when the numbers get ugly, you don't feel informed. You feel judged. That's why a century-old Japanese method is spreading far beyond Japan right now. Not because it's trendy, not because it's cute, but because it does something most money systems fail to do. It makes spending visible before it becomes regret. It turns vague financial anxiety into clear decisions. And in a time when a lot of people feel like their paycheck is shrinking in real life, even if it hasn't changed on paper, that shift matters. Now, this matters because the pressure is real. In the Federal Reserve's 2024 report on the economic well-being of U.S. households, only 63% of adults said they could cover a hypothetical $400 emergency expense using cash, savings, or a credit card that they would pay off at the next statement. 13% said they wouldn't be able to pay that expense by any means. Think about that. A problem the size of a minor car repair, a medical copay, or a broken appliance is enough to knock millions of people off balance. And it gets worse. The same report found that only 55% of adults had enough money set aside to cover 3 months of expenses in an emergency fund. 30% said they could not cover 3 months of expenses by any means, not by savings, not by borrowing, not by selling assets. That's not a niche problem. That is a huge portion of the population living one disruption away from panic. There's another number that says even more. 19% of adults reported spending more than their income in the month before the survey. Not because they wanted a luxury lifestyle, often because life itself kept getting more expensive. Food, transportation, bills, medical costs, random repairs. The kind of spending that doesn't feel dramatic in one moment, but becomes brutal when repeated over 30 days. A 2025 bank rate survey makes the picture even sharper. 37% of Americans said they tapped their emergency savings in the past year, and 80% of those withdrawals were for essentials. 51% used that money for an unplanned emergency expense. 38% used it for monthly bills like rent or utilities. 32% used it for day-to-day expenses like food or supplies. That means the danger is not just catastrophe anymore. For a lot of people, ordinary life is now expensive enough to raid the safety net. And this is where most people get it wrong. They think the answer is extreme restriction. No coffee, no fun, no social life, no small pleasures. But a budget built on punishment usually collapses. People can white-knuckle deprivation for a week, maybe a month. Then one stressful day hits, and the whole system breaks. The spending returns, now mixed with guilt. The cycle repeats. What Kakeibo does instead is different. It doesn't ask you to become a robot. It asks you to become conscious. Kakeibo roughly translates to household financial ledger. It was created in 1904 by Hani Motoko, who is widely considered Japan's first female journalist. That detail matters. This wasn't designed by a fintech startup trying to keep you inside an app. It wasn't built as a flashy optimization hack. It was built to help real households understand their money, make better choices, and save with intention. And more than a century later, it's resurfacing outside Japan because the core problem never changed. When money feels chaotic, people don't need more noise. They need a system simple enough to keep using under pressure. That's why you now see Kakeibo explained in British banking guides, American finance media, and mainstream global coverage. Not because everyone suddenly loves notebooks, but because simplicity becomes valuable when life gets expensive. So what is Kakeibo, really? It's not just budgeting. It's a method for forcing honesty back into your financial life. At its core, Kakeibo works through a few deceptively simple moves. And if you understand these moves, you'll understand why this method sticks when so many others fail. First, Kakeibo begins before the month runs away from you. That sounds obvious, but most people live financially in reverse. They earn, they spend, they react. Then, at the end of the month, they stare at the leftovers and call the difference savings, if anything is left at all. Kakeibo flips that order. At the beginning of the month, you write down how much money you have coming in, what your fixed expenses are, and how much you want to save. Not what you hope to save, not what would be nice, what you intend to save. That single shift changes the psychology. Because now saving is not the accidental residue of good behavior. It becomes a line item with status, a priority. A decision made while you're calm, not one made when the month is already bleeding you. This matters because vague savings goals are almost useless. I should save more is not a plan. It's a wish wearing business clothes. The mind ignores wishes. It responds to constraints. Once a number is written down, your spending has a boundary, and boundaries create awareness. Let's say someone brings home $3,000 a month after taxes. Rent, utilities, insurance, and transport take $1,900. In most households, the remaining $1,100 gets treated like open territory. Food spills into convenience spending. Convenience spending spills into impulse spending. Impulse spending becomes emotional recovery after stressful days. Then the month ends, and the person says, I don't know why I can't save. Kakeibo interrupts that script. If the savings goal is written first, maybe 250 or 300 gets mentally assigned before the rest starts competing for oxygen. That doesn't solve everything, but it changes the battlefield. Second, Kakeibo sorts your spending into 4 categories that reveal what your money is actually doing. The first category is general. These are the things you truly need: rent, groceries, utilities, transport, basic living costs. The second is wants, things you enjoy but don't need to survive. Eating out, new clothes, hobbies, convenience purchases, the things that feel small in isolation and expensive in total. The third category is culture, and this is one of the smartest parts of the whole system. Culture includes books, museum visits, concerts, learning, and meaningful experiences. In other words, spending that feeds your mind or enriches your life. The fourth category is unexpected extras: repairs, emergency gifts, sudden fees, medical surprises. All the things people act shocked by, even though life keeps producing them. Now, why is that structure powerful? Because most budgets are too crude. They lump everything into needs and wants, which sounds clean, but hides the truth. A person who spends on books, classes, or a meaningful hobby is not always spending the same way as someone doom-scrolling through online sales at midnight. The outcomes are different. The emotional drivers are different. The regret level is different. Kakeibo knows that. It separates pleasure from enrichment. That makes the system more human and more sustainable. And the unexpected extras category is just as important. Traditional budgets act like every month should be normal. Real life is never normal. Something always breaks. Someone always has a birthday. A fee appears, travel changes, a prescription shows up. By naming that category in advance, Kakeibo stops turning predictable unpredictability into emotional chaos. Here's what history shows. Systems survive when they match reality. Systems fail when they demand fantasy. A method that assumes you will never have random expenses is not discipline. It's fiction. Third, Kakeibo asks you to write down every purchase. Yes, every purchase. And this is the part that sounds primitive to people who worship automation. Why write things down when your bank app already tracks it? Because recording is not the same as noticing. Your bank records the transaction after the decision. Kakeibo makes you face the decision while it's still psychologically alive. When you have to manually write, delivery app, $24, snacks, $11, rideshare because I overslept, $19, those purchases stop disguising themselves as random life. They start forming a pattern. And patterns are harder to lie to yourself about. A digital app can show you data, but a manual ledger forces contact. That contact is where the power lives. When spending is invisible, the brain treats each purchase like an isolated event. A drink here, a convenience fee there, a bundle discount, a forgotten subscription, a same-day delivery upgrade. Nothing seems fatal on its own. But Kakeibo stitches those isolated moments into one picture. And once you can see the picture, your behavior starts to change before the month ends. Not because someone scolded you, because the story becomes obvious. You realize you're not overspending on fun. You're overspending on friction avoidance. You're not blowing money on grand luxuries. You're bleeding it through low-emotion autopilot. Convenience, fatigue, reward after stress, purchases made not because you truly valued them, but because you wanted to end a feeling. That distinction is huge. Because if the real issue is stress spending, then cutting one coffee won't save you. You have to design better responses to stress. If the issue is convenience spending, then the answer might be meal prep, calendar control, or reducing the number of decisions you make when tired. If the issue is social spending, the answer might be pre-deciding a weekly cap before the invitations start rolling in. Kakeibo doesn't just show what left your account. It shows what state of mind keeps charging the card. Fourth, the method ends with reflection, not just arithmetic. At the end of the month, Kakeibo asks 4 questions. How much money do I have? How much money would I like to save? How much money am I spending? How can I improve? Those questions sound simple. They are not simple. Most people never ask the 4th one honestly. They ask it like a courtroom question. How can I improve becomes, how was I stupid again? That leads nowhere. Kakeibo works best when the question is asked like a scientist, not a prosecutor. What happened this month? Which category expanded the fastest? What triggered that expansion? What was worth it? What wasn't? Where did I spend to solve a real problem? Where did I spend to avoid discomfort for 10 minutes and create stress for 10 days? That is the real review. And this is where most people get it wrong. They assume successful money systems are about perfection. They're not. They're about feedback. If you overspent on takeout because work exploded and you had no food at home, that's not just a spending issue. It may be a planning issue, or an energy issue, or a schedule issue. If unexpected extras keep wrecking your month, maybe they're not truly unexpected anymore. Maybe you need a permanent buffer category. If you keep blowing your wants budget on weekends, maybe you need cash limits or a pre-committed number before Friday night. Reflection turns shame into adjustment. That may be the single biggest reason Kakeibo works. Fifth, and this may be the strongest insight of all, Kakeibo protects the difference between a rich-looking life and a secure life. A rich-looking life is easy to fake for a while. Delivered meals, upgraded devices, fast fashion, paid convenience, tiny luxuries spread across dozens of transactions. It can feel normal because everyone around you is doing some version of it. But a secure life looks different. A secure life is boring in ways that don't show on social media. It's money left over after the month. It's a bill that doesn't spike your heart rate. It's a car repair that ruins your afternoon, not your year. It's the ability to absorb a hit without becoming desperate. Now this matters because many people are living inside a dangerous illusion. If money still comes in, they assume they're okay. If the card still works, they assume they're stable. If they can recover next month, they assume the system is fine. But a 2025 bank rate survey showed that many people who used emergency savings did it for monthly bills and day-to-day expenses. That's the warning sign. When ordinary life starts eating the emergency fund, you don't have a spending glitch. You have a structural problem. Kakeibo is useful because it catches structural problems early. It shows when groceries are quietly becoming convenience spending. It shows when wants are really stress relief. It shows when unexpected has become routine. It shows when your savings goal is fake because your fixed costs are too high. It shows when your identity and your spending no longer match. That last one matters more than people realize. A lot of financial anxiety comes from internal contradiction. You say security matters, but your monthly behavior says immediacy matters more. You say you want flexibility, but your spending says comfort in the present outranks freedom in the future. You say you're trying to get ahead, but your money keeps buying relief, speed, and emotional sedation. Kakeibo brings that contradiction into the light, not to shame you, to free you. Because once your spending matches your values, your money stops feeling like a leak and starts feeling like a tool. Let's make this practical. Imagine two people earning roughly the same amount. The first person uses a normal budget app. It auto-categorizes transactions, it sends alerts, it shows charts. But the person rarely checks it until the end of the week, sometimes the end of the month. Spending feels mostly automatic. When the numbers look bad, they promise to do better next month. The second person uses Kakeibo. At the start of the month, they set a savings target. They know their fixed costs. They separate general needs, wants, culture, and unexpected extras. Every day, or at least several times a week, they write down what they spent. Not for punishment, for contact. At the end of the week, they already see the pattern forming. Too much convenience food, too many low-value wants, a random expense category that needs a buffer. So they correct before the month is over. Who is more likely to feel in control? Not the person with more software, the person with more awareness. That's why Kakeibo has such strong survival value in unstable times. It does not require market knowledge. It does not require high income. It does not require perfect discipline. It requires attention, honesty, and repetition. And those are available to more people than advanced financial strategies. Now, let's be clear. Kakeibo is not magic. It will not erase low wages. It will not eliminate inflation. It will not solve medical debt. It will not make rent cheap. And it should never be used to blame people for systemic pressure. If your income is too low relative to your costs, the ledger will reveal that truth, but it won't fix it by itself. But that honesty is still valuable. Sometimes the greatest benefit of a system is not that it makes everything work. It proves exactly what is not working. If you do Kakeibo for 2 or 3 months and the numbers still don't move, that itself is information. Maybe the real answer is not better budgeting. Maybe it's renegotiating bills, cutting a major fixed cost, changing transportation, picking up income, selling something, reworking debt, looking for a housing change. The ledger cannot do those things for you, but it can stop you from blaming small treats for a problem caused by a much bigger imbalance. And that clarity saves time, energy, and self-respect. There's also a reason the culture category deserves more attention than people give it. A lot of failed budgets are joyless. They tell people to eliminate everything that makes life feel alive, and then act surprised when the person snaps and overspends. Kakeibo quietly avoids that trap. By naming culture separately, it acknowledges that a good financial life is not just survival. It is also meaning. Books, learning, art, experiences that enrich you rather than just numb you. That category is a warning against false austerity. A life with no room for meaning becomes expensive in other ways. Burnout spending, rebound spending, emotional compensation. A budget that cannot support a livable life is not a budget. It is a countdown to rebellion. So no, Kakeibo is not about becoming a miser. It is about spending on purpose. That means you may still choose the dinner out, but you choose it consciously. You may still buy the book, but it lands in culture, not in some blurry pile of miscellaneous. You may still spend on fun, but you will know what you traded for it. That's the real adult version of financial freedom. Not never spend, not treat yourself constantly. Know the cost. Decide deliberately. Repeat. And here's the part most people miss until they try it. Once spending becomes visible, a strange calm starts to replace money anxiety. Not because you suddenly have more money overnight, but because uncertainty shrinks. The unknown is what creates panic. The hidden leak, the mystery charge, the not knowing. Kakeibo removes mystery. And when mystery disappears, action becomes possible. If you've ever felt dread before opening your banking app, this is why the method lands so hard for people. It doesn't promise wealth fantasies. It promises reconnection. It teaches you to look directly at your financial life without flinching. That skill is bigger than budgeting. It affects how you handle emergencies, how you negotiate, how you plan, how you say no, how you define enough. It even changes what counts as success. Success stops being, I spent less this week than last week. It becomes, I understood my choices, protected my future, and reduced the gap between how I say I want to live and how I actually live. That is a much stronger foundation. So, if you want to use Kakeibo, the starting rule is simple. For the next month, don't try to impress yourself. Don't try to build the perfect budget. Don't overcomplicate it with 10 categories, spreadsheets, and color-coded fantasies. Use one notebook or one clean document if you must go digital. Write your monthly income. Write your fixed costs. Write one realistic savings target. Then, track your spending under 4 buckets: general, wants, culture, and unexpected extras. At the end of each week, review. At the end of the month, ask the 4 questions. How much money do I have? How much money would I like to save? How much money am I spending? How can I improve? And when you answer that last one, be precise. Not be better, not stop wasting money. Say the actual thing. Cut food delivery to once a week. Move subscriptions out of autopilot and review them. Add a permanent repair buffer. Bring lunch on high-stress workdays. Set a weekend cash cap. Protect one culture expense so the budget stays human. That is how vague fear becomes control. Here's the action rule that makes this system work. Write before you spend, not after you regret. That's it. Because once money has already disappeared, you're doing autopsy work. Kakeibo is about prevention. It is about catching the story while it's still being written. And in a world where a lot of people are one surprise bill away from chaos, prevention is not a luxury. It is a survival skill. The Japanese savings method spreading worldwide is not really about Japan, and it's not really about a notebook. It's about recovering something modern money systems quietly stole from people. Awareness. Awareness of what you earn. Awareness of what you value. Awareness of what daily life is costing you. Awareness of the little choices that either build a buffer or destroy it. When you get that awareness back, you stop feeling hunted by your own finances. You become harder to destabilize. You become harder to manipulate. You become harder to panic. And that may be more valuable now than ever. If you want, Try Kakeibo for the next 30 days and come back to this video. Tell me which category surprised you most: general, wants, culture, or unexpected extras. And if you want more practical breakdowns on saving, spending psychology, and building real financial security in unstable times, subscribe.